Welcome, everyone. I'm Adam Edwards, CEO of Telarus, here today with President and COO of Nextiva, Mr. Marc Stoll. I'm thrilled to be with Marc this morning and talk about Nextiva, some of their unique attributes, what he's seen in the post-COVID world or the current COVID world. But I've got to start most interestingly with Mr. Marc Stoll himself and his background. We got a chance a couple months ago to sit together in San Francisco and talk about some of the things that he's experienced, where he's come from, and why he is uniquely qualified to lead Nextiva at this time. So Marc, with that preamble, would love to hear about your background before we get into some unique things about Nextiva.
Thanks, Adam. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me here today. So if you look at my background, it's a little bit different than what you see traditionally in the UCaaS space. I come from tech, so I'm an engineer at heart. Then I went off to business school and obviously pursued finance, which you see when you take a look at this. And I'm a numbers guy at heart, like yourself. What I was really focused on through my career was really driving impact. And I consider myself an operator at heart. The time that I had to spend going from computer associates, large tech companies and software companies, and then progressing to the time that I spent at Apple, which is probably the most unique time, really helped me understand how to operate and run businesses at scale. So I had the pleasure of joining Apple in 2008, just after the launch of the first iPhone. AT&T was the only carrier during that time, if you can remember back to those days, and then supported the growth of the company by over 125 billion during that period of time that I was there. So a very unique opportunity to be part of that transition and kind of, make an impact on the world at that scale. And what it taught me during that time were, kind of the elements of business scope and scale that matter, right? Details matter. How you operate matters. The ethics and integrity to which you operate really matters. And so when I left Apple and took some personal time to focus on my family and started thinking about what I wanted to do next, there's a really unique opportunity for me with Nextiva, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. But, at the end of the day, when I take a step back and I look at, how I got to, when I started from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and then progressed as an electrical engineer up through finance, and then ultimately with Apple and helping to scale that organization, the common threads through that are really kind of problem solving, operational excellence, and then really building support and teams around me that can help scale and lead. So I hope that gives you some insight into kind of who I am and the background that I bring.
It does, but I think you kind of skipped through the Apple part where for 5 years or so,
Sure.
I would, as I look at Apple's history, probably the most aggressive growth, the highest, steepest trajectory on their growth curve. Obviously, $1 trillion company now and massive now, but you really went from this, small company to a massive company at scale. And so you mentioned the fact that you've got this background in scaling, and you were actually, it was a global business as you brought it to the forefront. I, by the way, was one of those AT&T customers
okay, good.
Where it was
I'm sure you were.
Yes. And so since that time, you've been all these different boards of directors, engaging, you're highly involved in mentoring and giving back. Then you decide to come to Nextiva. Tell us about your thought process going through that. Why Nextiva? You're a guy who can write his own ticket. Companies would, fall over themselves to get you in a leadership position. Tell us why Nextiva.
Yeah, it's a great question. So I left Apple ultimately because I had, as I mentioned, a personal issue. My son has a very serious heart condition. And so I needed to take some time to regroup, and fortunately was in a situation that I could do that. And the beautiful thing about kind of living in the market that I live in, I'm sitting here in Silicon Valley in California, is that there are a tremendous amount of opportunities here. But at the same time, what matters ultimately is not just the opportunity, it's really the people that you're working with, and then what you're able to leave behind, what you're able to build, how you make an impact. And so when I thought long and hard about what that next step was, as a great example, it wasn't right for me to go back to Apple. Right, I wasn't necessarily interested in taking that $1 trillion scale and trying to make it, slightly bigger or help change and grow that anymore. That was a really profound time in my career and very impactful. But I wanted to take those learnings and those lessons that I developed during that period of time, and I wanted to put it to work in a place that I felt could make a real difference in the new market, where I could take those experiences and put my own stamp on it. And those were some of the things that I learned from the board work that I did too. But, you know, a lot of the boards I joined were in transition from, transitioning company to sale as an example, and then transitioning company into growth, and then also transition from private to public. So, you know, so that opportunity and those learnings, I was really looking for the right place to bring that back to. I looked at private equity work, I looked at venture capital to try to bring some of those experience sets. But then I came across Thomas and the founder of Nextiva. And, you know, when you take a step back and you think about that, why would a guy who sits in Silicon Valley get on a plane every week and fly to Scottsdale? And the reality is because of the team and the opportunity. You know, Thomas has built something really special at Nextiva, and you can feel it when you walk in the door and you get to know him and the employees. There's a real passion behind what they're building, and it felt like, to me, Apple in 2008, believe it or not. And it's really hard to find companies that have that energy and vibe behind them and the passion behind them. And what they need to succeed is better operational execution, right? The UCaaS market, as you know, is a very attractive market segment, right? $20 billion market in the US, growing at 20%, $40 billion globally. And given the situation that we're in the world right now, this is only going to accelerate the growth trajectory. And then when you think about some of the things that I'll talk about that Nextiva has coming shortly with our new products centered around NextOS, this is a game changer. This will allow us to break into a market segment of over $100 billion globally. And so when I took a step back and thought about what I wanted to do next, clearly the opportunity was there. But then as I got to know the leadership team and Thomas at Nextiva, it really felt like a place that understood kind of the priorities between me of personal and kind of professional work. You know, we used to joke at Apple that there were, you know, if you believed in work-life balance, it's a common term that everybody uses. If you like to work, you're balanced, right? You know, as you and I progress in our career, Adam, other things become more, you know, you have to, at the end of the day, our lives today we work all the time, right? We could be working at 11 o'clock at night, or we could be working at, 5 a.m. in the morning. The reality is, how do you feather that work into your life so that you find an appropriate balance for you? Because both life and work are always on, right? And as I got to know the leadership team and I got to know Thomas personally, I felt like this was a place that understood my priorities in life, my focus with my son, and then and was a place where I could make a real impact, help this company operate and run better.
So great answer. You said, look, Apple has already scaled to trillion. So what, you make it 1.5 trillion? That's not scale. That magical
Right.
time when you went from launch of the iPhone to 125 billion, that steep trajectory curve. Your comment that Nextiva felt like Apple in 2008,
Yeah.
Was that because of the leadership? Was it because of the culture? Was it because of the product capabilities? How exactly did it feel like Apple?
Yeah, it's really the culture and the leadership, and what we want, what we're building here. So when I joined the company, I embarked on kind of assessing our leadership team and looking where we might need to make some changes in the organization so that we could grow and set ourselves up for the future. So I made we brought in a new CFO, a woman named Ann Brennan, who is here in Silicon Valley with me. Total professional, can be anywhere she wants, can write her own ticket as well. She chooses to get on a plane and show up in Scottsdale every week. And also brought in a new head of people, a guy named Marc Green. Marc, I've known personally for over a decade. We'll talk a little bit more, but he's worked with my mentor several times throughout his career. And Marc is an absolute pro in HR, has seen it all at scale, has lived all over the world. And again, he too is getting on a plane every week and showing up in Scottsdale and helping us grow and change this business, because we all feel the same thing and see that opportunity. So at the leadership level, we're really building now a culture of trust and respect, and of kind of real understanding of what we're trying to build here. And Nextiva hasn't had that for the last 11 years. You know, Thomas has searched for that leadership at the top with Tracy and the co-founder. And, it's tough, as you know, right? Building a leadership team where there's a lot of kind of common trust and respect across the organization it's difficult. where there's clear alignment about what the goals and objectives are, and where there's real focus behind what you're trying to accomplish and when and how you get it done, right? There's a way to get work done, and then there's getting work done, and then there's a way that you get work done that matters. And so this was a real opportunity to start putting that stamp on how we're going to work and operate as a team. And that's what I felt at Apple. At the leadership team at Apple, that team had been together for a long time. They were together when the company almost went bankrupt, and they were together when the company became $1 trillion company. And, that level of trust and respect, ethics, integrity, how you operate, the way that you go about making things happen for the company and its growth profile really matters. How you treat your employees really matters. How you treat your partners really matters. And I really felt that at Apple in those early days, and it was really formative for me as an operator. And that's what I felt here. And then that's what I really feel the leadership team now has been together for over a year. And we have that same energy and passion and kind of connection.
Great.
If that helps.
Absolutely. So leadership, culture, those are the things you're looking for. That's why you signed up. As we met a couple months ago and talked about some of the unique aspects of Nextiva, it really sits in a category as its own. I mean, we weren't just talking about UC. Would you share with us a little bit about what you talked to me about without using the word platform? I think that word gets overused, and therefore the meaning is lost on some because everybody calls their technology a platform. Talk to us a little bit about how Nextiva is unique in what it's trying to accomplish.
Sure. I'm going to use the word platform though, but I'm going to tell you why. I'll use it in a little bit. So if I can use it one time, let me use it one time, and then I'll tell you why.
But it's like the word strategy. Everybody loves to use the word, and it therefore loses its meaning. So use the word platform one time, but talk to us about what that means.
I can do that, Adam. Sounds great. So what we're embarked on, and again, when I thought about what I wanted to do in my career and where that next step was, this is why I joined Nextiva, right? I would say, with all due respect, if this was a UCaaS play, I might have found something different to do with my career, right? But this is way bigger than UCaaS. This is a 5X opportunity for us. And how does that come together? And it's not vaporware. It's not a slide deck. It's 4 years in the making, $80 million investment. It's here, it's now, right? And so this is what was really exciting for me. So, Adam, we're underpinning communications at the core of our solution. Okay, so start there, underpinning UCaaS as the core. We're driving a much tighter connected communications environment for our customers. This is what we're focused on. So at the end of the day, what matters is the relationships that our customers have with their customers. And at the end of the day, we all want that long lifetime value of customer connection. So how do you get that? Thomas realized a long time ago that UCaaS would become a commodity play. Zoom is out in the market today and they're doing incredibly well. Why? Because they made it easier. They just did it a little bit easier. But the technology stack that underlines Zoom is a commodity technology stack. And so the innovation has to occur above that stack, okay? And so underpin communications at the bottom. Then we wanted to start layering in all of the critical touch points of customer engagement. So when you think of sales CRM, right? So we want to set that up. We want to know our customer. You think of service CRM. They come back, they need support, they need help to solve that issue. You think of analytics. I want to draw some conclusions from that. I want to draw conclusions from my call time, my chat time, my engagement, my sales process, my service process, abandonment rate. So analytics is a core component of it. I then want to kick off surveys. I want to understand how my customers are doing. We have that built into it as well. And so it completely rounds out that portfolio. And the last piece of it, which I think is the one that's most exciting, is this concept of customer sentiment. So if you think of those pillars, right, from sales CRM to service CRM to analytics to survey tools and then to customer sentiment, that collection of tools underpinned by a common communications platform is the core of what we're creating here. It sounds daunting when you think about it. You think of, wait a second, you're trying to be Salesforce and Zendesk and SurveyMonkey. You can't do that. Like, pack it up, go home. The reality is we don't need to beat them to be successful in what we're doing. What we need to do is find that 20% of the feature set that solves 80% of their problems and do it in a very easy way, a la Zoom, right? And so if we're able to do that, and we think that we can, and we have it, then this will be really impactful for a customer base going from small enterprise to mid enterprise, and then in the future, as we round out that feature set, large enterprise and above, right? We're going to be scaling up from our core strength, which is small enterprise, up the stack, if you will. And the focus is around really democratizing innovation for enterprises, right? So you shouldn't have to have a Salesforce developer. The fact that you need a Salesforce developer, to me, says there's something wrong with Salesforce. Why is that a career option? There's no career option for helping you understand how to use your iPhone. There shouldn't need to be one for helping you how to understand and use your sales CRM, right? Of course, there's setup. Of course, there's implementation help and support that you need. But then the effectiveness of that tool should be able to be owned by the users. And you shouldn't have to spend, an inordinate amount of money to make that solution work, and so that you can connect better with your customers. So that's the vision and the focus behind what we're accomplishing now. I'll pause there for a second because I can go on forever about this. And I hope you notice I didn't use the word platform one time.
You did, and that's impressive. That's amazing. But truly is a platform. See, I just used it. Where you've got a communication platform where you're managing all sorts of aspects of communication, whether it's voice, whether it's inbound requests through
Chat.
CRM, outbound,
that's right.
Analytics, sentiment. So you've got pieces of call center, pieces of UC, but you're really setting up another category when you talk about the entire Next OS objective.
That's right. We're setting up, and this is what's exciting about it to me. We're setting up another category, but the category itself is based on 6 well-defined categories that already exist in the marketplace. And so the beautiful thing is we're not building a widget that nobody's ever heard of and saying, give it a shot, it's a stretch, but once you start using it, you'll like it. What we're saying is if you want to come into Next OS because you need UCaaS, come in for UCaaS. And while you're in that single pane of glass, you're going to see that we have available to you Service CRM, or you're going to see that we have available to you analytics or survey tools. So you finish up a call, and it's going to say, "Would you like us to send off a survey to that customer?" Oh, you didn't know we had surveys? We have that. How about a free trial of surveys? We can automate that for you. Would you like us to automate that for you every time after the end of every call? And so that's a real powerful element to driving value for customers that don't need to build large IT shops, right? And Adam, the core component of this at the end of the day, as I mentioned, is really about connecting businesses to their customers in a way they've never been connected before. We say, know your customer, right? And the key driver to this is a patented technology that we've coined customer sentiment analysis, right? So there's this concept in the marketplace called Net Promoter Score, and there's a company called Medallia that went public, very successful company here in Silicon Valley. And these are the surveys that you and I get. You go buy an Apple iPhone and you get how was your experience at the store, thumbs up or thumbs down. Then from that collection of responses, you begin to draw inferences around, how are we doing? Is our service and our support centers, are they functioning well? That's a snapshot, it's a point in time, and it's not complete because it doesn't represent some people might not respond to the survey. So it doesn't help you understand how to manage that specific customer or that specific engagement. What we have built into Next OS is a real-time scoring model that drives customer sentiment continually. So when a call comes in, we immediately know who that person's calling, because we can tap into the sales CRM. We can understand kind of the products and services that they're using immediately. If they call in for a support issue, we can understand the time to resolution. We can understand tonal analysis in that call. We can determine if the tone of that call is they're not happy or they are happy, right? We can then, look at the prior history of calls, and wow, they've been calling in more frequently lately. There must be an issue with their service offering or what they're providing. And then from that, we could kick off surveys to say this call did not go well. Let's kick a survey off to them And then we can add that into our customer sentiment scoring. And then we can compare that unique customer to a cohort of customers within your portfolio that looks very similar. And so you can start saying, wow, why is this customer in my insurance segment unhappy, or their trend is beginning to turn unhappy? And that gives you a proactive way to begin reaching out to them. Hey, I noticed you've been calling in a lot lately. What can we do to help? How can we change that conversation before you get the conversation that, you know, I'm going to switch. And then you're scrambling to try to figure out how to solve that. So real-time customer sentiment is a new concept in the market, and it can't happen unless you own the communications connection. It just can't happen, right? And this is where our competitors, everybody is using that term platform, and everybody is trying to find out how to, but they're coming at it from a perspective, I submit, Adam, that they're trying to figure out how to offset the decline in UCaaS pricing, right? And this is the challenge. They're coming at it from I have to offset, and so I'm going to get a collaboration tool to help me be stickier. That's not where we're coming from. We're coming from a perspective that we want to empower our customers to support their customers better, generate revenue, right? Not just offset pricing declines and pricing pressure. So it's a very different model, and this is what really attracted me at the end of the day about what we're accomplishing here.
Yeah, so I got to ask, with it being that different, are partners just going about this the wrong way? Should we be leading with Nextiva as a UC product? Oh, and by the way, it's actually a platform that does all of these different things to manage your customer relationships and engagement. Or is there another angle? Should partners out there be selling it in a completely different manner of, a CRM or a customer management, platform?
Yeah, so this is where I think it gets really unique from a partnership perspective, Adam, because this approach allows us to open the platform up to many different market segments that, again, as I said to you earlier, are well-defined. So let's say you have a partner under the Telarus model that doesn't know how to sell CRM. Don't worry about it. But they're great at selling UCaaS. They'll sell UCaaS, and then the customer will understand the value proposition in the total NextOS platform, and may add in CRM at the end. And that's additional residuals for that partner. Then you know how to sell CRM, but it's in the platform. We'll help you close that, right? And so the other thing is, let's say you have a partner that has never sold UCaaS, but is interested in, is really good at selling CRM. They come in and start selling CRM, and they're doing it off the basis as well of selling UCaaS. And so again, this is where this model gets really unique. We don't care how a customer comes into NextOS, right? We're happy to take all comers that want to come in, because they may have you know how hard it is when you try to sell a platform, and this is when I'll use the term. You might have people that say, you know what, I use Salesforce for my CRM and I'm happy with them. I don't need that from you. So I'm just here to solve a point problem that I have today. I don't need all this other stuff. And we're okay with that. You'll have the same look and feel in the single pane of glass as I talked about. There'll still be the same self-setup and self-install. And this is something new that we're doing, Adam. We're pushing really hard to make UCaaS self-installable. And this is a game changer, right? So that you can set up your IVR in the tool. You don't need to go through an onboarding process. You can work on porting your numbers through the tool. You can work on that call flow, right? What happens when I press 1? What happens when I press 2, right? All of that stuff we can set up in a visual way for you. And this is new in the industry on UCaaS alone. So we're driving innovation there too. But it all comes from this basis of connected communications, and the communications has to be the foundation. If you don't have communications, you can't do what we're doing.
Well, but this, I think, should speak to partners as addressing a concern they've got right now, in that they've got a relationship. They have a trusted relationship and can introduce things into these customers. And, UC, contact center, great. We're selling that stuff all day long. But these partners have been boxed out from Salesforce that doesn't want to part with any of their revenue. And so a partner can be compensated a bit on professional services, which is really a one-time thing, or maybe a small cash flow over time for management. Or, for Zoho, very, very small margins there in terms of what a partner is paid. Clearly, these I'm going to use the word platform again. Those platforms don't value the partner. But what a partner
That's right.
can do with Nextiva is go in and displace some of those things where they're
That's
not
right.
getting payment and capture all of that revenue, really expanding their earning potential from just UC or just contact center to capturing CRM as well.
Adam, I'm excited to hear you say that because I have nothing else to add to that statement.
Oh, why are we talking about that more?
I don't know. That's a great question. Part of it is, Adam, because we're still finalizing, kind of how we're going to market. And when I say that, I'm saying, kind of putting the wrappers around that partnership model for us, right? And so that's important stuff, right? And we want to get it right. We're also, we made a pivot. We would have NextOS in the market right now, but given the coronavirus and the pandemic that we faced, we paused and pivoted to drive more value in our UCaaS offerings to make sure that we could help address the needs of our customers in this work from home environment. And so we consciously paused and reset and drove more value into our products and added more technology into our products. And I'm happy to talk about that too. But we paused that. So I think part of the reason why we're not talking about it more is we consciously hit the pause button to focus on what mattered in the world today and in the US economy today.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about today and what you're seeing, because what I've noticed in the last 2 months is there is just a vacuum of information. People are starved to get real-time information. Now, things aren't changing as quickly as they were, but from a partner's perspective, we're so far downstream in terms of the cash flow stream that's typically where we get our information of slow pays, non-pays. What are customers doing? Are they buying? Are they canceling? Any insight you can give us there that, insight on what partners might want to know about the current state of customers that Nextiva is seeing?
Sure. I'm happy to share with you kind of what we're seeing and how we're performing. When the crisis hit in mid-March, we got together as a leadership team and we made a decision not to cancel any of our customers. I mean, if we had a customer that was on the, just literally doesn't want the service and they need to go, they are choosing to go with somebody else, obviously that's a different story. We'll let them cancel for all the right reasons, right? But if we had customers coming to us and saying, look, I'm having trouble paying my bills, or I'm concerned about this. What we decided to do is give customers the option to put their account on hold for basically $4.95 a line. You can put your lines on hold. And so we've done that. We began tracking that. And, we had a real steady kind of consistent daily amount of what we called hardship requests. We just started seeing that trend dip down and kind of begin to, I would say, cut in half or, cut down by 2/3. Which was really kind of promising to start seeing that last week. And we're continuing to see that same trend as of yesterday as well. So we're starting to see the number and the value of hardship requests coming down. Now, again, what conclusions can we draw from that? Well, we're hopeful, one, that people have made this shift or starting to make this shift to work from home. But we also have some states, as you know, Adam, that are reopening. And so we think some of the people are going back to work and are kind of reassessing their business. And we also have, as you're aware, the federal PPP loan program. People have their loans and so they're operating. So, part of what we're trying to figure out is, would there be a second wave, let's say, as some of those PPP loans kind of get worked through and then companies get back to kind of reassessing their new normal? And will there be a second wave behind it? So I would say to you today that indications are positive that we're seeing a better trend, but what's the long-term prognosis for that? We still don't have a good insight into that yet, but we track it daily. Right?
Well, listen, any information we can get our hands on is useful because, like I said, we're blind and behind in terms of where the cash flow is coming from. But the fact that those hardship requests have decreased significantly is a very positive data point. And I
think so too. Obviously for us.
Right. Long term, do we have a double dip? Is there something else? Who knows? But at least that data point that you just shared, and I believe you said that was you said earlier that was in the last week. Is
yes, it is.
Tremendous
last
news.
week.
So
good
to hear.
Absolutely.
Wonderful to hear.
I agree. It is positive. Yeah, we you and I live in this, in a unique part of the economy today, in a unique part of our communities. And, you know, we say at Nextiva, and we feel very fortunate to be in a place where we're providing an essential service to businesses. Yes, they could go to a competitor of ours. That's absolutely something they could do. So do you need Nextiva? I don't know. We think we have the best phone service in the market. So I would say, yes, you do. But, you know, there is this kind of pride that we take, and the sense of kind of, you know, feeling fortunate that we're providing an essential service to the market, and we want those businesses to return. You know, I don't know what it's like in Utah, Adam, but here in California, it's scary, right? You know, driving down the street and seeing a lot of these small businesses closed. Will they come back? You know, the restrictions are still tight here in California, so we'll see. But we want to be there for them when they come back, and we want to be there for them with more value in our bundles. And we have that, and then we want to be there for them with NextOS to help them kind of round out their technology portfolio in a cost-efficient way. You don't need to go spend thousands of dollars on Zendesk and Salesforce and SurveyMonkey and Medallia and all these tools. We want to democratize that innovation curve, and that's where we think that we can play a catalyst in helping small businesses recover in an efficient way.
So, and fortunately, you know, I think we were talking earlier about this. How great is it that we are in this position right now, selling the things that people need to keep business going?
Very, very fortunate. Very fortunate. Yeah, it's a gift.
Fantastic place to be. So let's talk a little bit about your prognosis of how do you see things moving forward in the next 6 months? I mean, obviously your product is needed long-term as, you know, customers engage more, or companies engage more close with their customers. But in the next 6 months, I mean, do you think partners are likely to see more activity, less activity? What do you think?
I think partners are going to start seeing more activity. You know, we had a partner call with our partner advisory council. We did that last week. At the beginning of last week. And it was really interesting. You know, partners, as you know, that business is done, as one of our partners said, belly to belly. I've heard toe to toe, but he likes to do business belly to belly. And, you know, it's true, right? Those are relationship-based selling, right? And so, you know, we saw a larger impact in our partner business than we did in our direct business, right? Due to COVID. And I think that business is coming back for two reasons. One is, I think people understand belly to belly isn't going to work, and people are doing what you're doing. I've been on more customer advisory calls. I've been in front of more customers over video than I did when I was flying to Scottsdale. And so I think that's a real positive. And I think people are understanding that this isn't just a temporary blip, right? This is something we're going to have to figure out how to work in. So, you know, that relationship that, you know, partner used to have with the business down the street, they need to find a different way to engage them, to support them, right? And so I think people are figuring that out. And so I think the prognosis for the channel and for partners in whole, I think is going to get better over the next 6 months as we figure this out. Again, this is absent any kind of changes in kind of the COVID prognosis. Let's assume it stays where it is today. We have to figure this out, right? And again, I think our partners are starting to figure out how to do customer, you know, kind of advisory groups, and how they're starting to get in front of them in different ways than they had before. And I think that will stay, right? I think some of these changes are positive, right? We're finding with our teams, and probably with yours, we're very effective, more than we thought we would be, in working from the home environment. And it's because of, you know, our tool sets, right? And so that's positive.
Yeah, I think you're right. Largest proof of concept ever. We're finding we can do things we didn't know we could before.
Yeah.
And, long term, I think that will have an impact. But I agree with you. I think we are going to see an uptick. I think as people get back to business, just like in the 08-09 downturn, kind of reassess, okay, what do I need to rethink? How do I lower costs and get more efficient? I'm in total agreement with you.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and I think part of the difference, Adam, for me, as I reflect on this, is it's affected everyone. And so I think even if we think to the 08 and 09 downturn, certain industry segments were affected more than others. And you will have that here too. But this is a global, in no time in our history have we had such a global impact on everyone. Everybody's had to be restricted, staying from home at some point. Social distancing applies to everybody. Businesses have been closed down everywhere. And so I think the difference is it's no longer, well, maybe I'll try it and nobody else will try it. Or I don't have to worry about that for my sector. That sector has to deal with that. We all have to figure this out. And so I think that's where we're going to see a huge momentum. Like legacy phone system, PBX systems, they just don't work anymore. Like, so where you thought as a business, my sector wasn't affected, I have time to get that right. You don't have time to get that right anymore. You got to get off legacy and you got to empower home, because if there's another wave, I have to be ready for it. So CIOs, I think, are going to be more aggressive than ever. That 20% growth rate in UCaaS that we've been seeing historically, I predict that's going to go up significantly. And it's going to go up significantly because I think people, that were caught kind of not ready for transitions like this are going to be scrambling when they can get back in the office to figure out how to change that dynamic and be ready.
Yeah.
So
good point. I think unfortunately this has been a unifying experience because we're all impacted by it, and hopefully some good comes out of that. So I want to switch topics here. You've done a lot of mentoring, exposure to a lot of different companies you've advised or sat on boards or built. Yeah. And I'd like just to get a couple of nuggets from you in terms of we've got partners who are heads of small businesses, some of them medium-sized businesses that are growing. Any career advice you can give to individuals right now who are growing their business or their career in the channel? Some of the best advice you've received in the past, perhaps.
Yeah, it's an important one, as we kind of talked a little bit before the show about kind of this topic and area. And as I mentioned to you, I feel very fortunate. I went off after I left Apple and thought about going back to work after I retired, and I got in front of the CEO of GoPro. Really fun guy. I don't know if you ever met him. He was a surfer, and he created GoPro. I'm sure you know the company, right? And I went into his office and to interview for the CFO job to take them public. And I sat down with him. When I walked in the office, he looked up at me and he said, "How the heck did you get from Grand Rapids Community College to here?" And he kind of looked at me with a big smile on his face. He's, jokingly, he said, "Do they have a statue of you at Grand Rapids Community College? How did you do this?" Right? And I humbly laughed and I said, I don't know. I worked hard. Took every opportunity for what it was. But the reality behind that, Adam, as I mentioned to you, I've been fortunate. I had 3 mentors in my career that really made a difference for me, and gave me the opportunity to work hard, and I always say kind of gave me the at-bat, gave me the opportunity to fail, and then I always say the opportunity to succeed. And I took every one of those opportunities for what they were. I didn't look at what it wasn't, right? I focused on what they gave me, and I did the best job that I could in that swim lane, knowing that if I succeeded there, I would get the next opportunity to go do something else, right? I'm a firm believer in that. I think a lot of people, on the employee side, when they're focused on their own career development, are looking around them at other people and saying, well, that person's succeeding faster than me, or this person has more breadth of scope than I do. And, I'm a big believer on focus what you can control. And then over time, things that you were concerned about that weren't under your control will eventually come under your control, right? And it's just because execution at the end of the day wins, right? And I'm just a firm believer in that. And so that's what I did in every one of those opportunities that I had. And it was kind of a funny story when I was with Tim. So I was Tim's finance guy at Apple for 5 years. So there's no head of sales at Apple. There's no CRO. It's Tim Cook. Even today, as CEO, he's the CRO. And there's a running joke that he just can't find somebody to be CRO. And the reality is he doesn't want to find anybody to be CRO. Well, I introduced him to one of my mentors who arguably is one of the smartest people that I've ever met in my life. Just an incredibly talented guy. And I've worked with him many times throughout my career on and off. And I introduced him to Tim, and they sat down to come in as being CRO. And after the meeting, I sat down with Tim and I said, so what'd you think? He said, loved him. super talented guy, wicked smart. I can see why you brought him in here. Not right for us though. And I said, really? I said, tell me why. He said, he doesn't have enough telco experience. He doesn't have enough channel experience. You know, he rattled off a list of things. And I said, yep, that's true. But this guy can learn anything, you know, give him the chance. And he said, you know, not the right fit. And so I said, you know, it's funny, Tim, why did you hire me? I didn't have that. I didn't have telco experience. I didn't have channel experience. And his comment to me, which I thought was interesting, is he said, I could tell you were an athlete. You were someone I can put in any bucket and you would figure it out. And Apple hires athletes, and we think long and hard about that. So it's kind of like Notre Dame football. They find the fastest guys and they put them on the field, right? And so, you know, I reflect on that a lot, and I think that really comes back to being able to, you know, kind of draw on that experience set that you have and adapt and put that to work in the swim lane that you've been asked to go do. So go crush that, what you've been given, focus on that, own that. Don't worry about what your other partners are doing. Don't worry about what other competitors are doing. Own your swim lane. If you have a certain sector that you work in, own it, crush it. And then that will expand from there, and be methodical about it. And so, you know, that's kind of, you know, coming from my background and kind of how I've grown my career and what I try to impart on people that I mentor. When I pivot that into an organization, let's say to help a small business run, I think a lot about focus. And that comes back to kind of that concept of a swim lane, right? I think about being very clear, and this is what we're doing at Nextiva, very clear about what we're doing and why, right? So there has to be complete alignment at the top. And so we spend a lot of time focused on, we operate on OKRs, if you're familiar with that concept and term, you know, derived from Intel and then used at Google very, very successfully. We implement that as a core principle. And from that, we're beginning to focus and really align the organization all the way down. And then I really believe in operating cadence and operating discipline. And so I think if you have focus and then you have operating discipline, what we're going to look at when and how we're going to look at it, it takes a lot of the ambiguity and gut feel about why things are successful out of the picture or why things are failing. And it brings a real kind of clinical approach to looking at the business. And then from there, you can bring in that experience set of how do we change? How do we grow? What do we need to do next? Why, you know, the data says this is going down. What are the things we can do to grow it up? And that's where that breadth of experience set comes in. And that's what, you know, that's what I wanted to bring to Nextiva, right? When I took a look at advising Earthlink in their sale to Windstream, and when I joined Windstream to help them grow on the board. And then when I was part of Arista Networks, which was the fastest company into the Fortune 500, competitor to Cisco, right? Went from private to being public in that period of time. You know, incredibly different stories, but all about change and growth and how you do that in a very thoughtful and pragmatic manner. And it comes down to clear alignment at the top, and then focus in the organization and disciplined operating rhythm. And so those are some of the principles, Adam, that I spend a lot of time on. And then on the mentoring side, as I shared, I try to get people to just focus on themselves and really focus in that area of execution and take every opportunity for what it is, right? This is an opportunity that we're sitting in today, right? You know, we have the pandemic that's affecting many businesses around the world. We're benefiting from it because we provide an essential service to them and our communities. We have to take advantage of that. And I'm just not talking about taking advantage of the revenue opportunity. I'm talking about taking advantage of the relationship opportunity, the partnership opportunity, being there for customers when they come out of this environment in a way that can help them grow. And that's what I mean.
Great advice. Thank you very much for not just the insight into Nextiva and the differences there, but some of the professional advice, as well as I always love hearing your story about past career stories. You know, most people don't refer to him as Tim. It's Tim Cook, and so it's fun to listen to stories.
True.
Everyone, thank you so much for.
I have a boatload. They're really fun ones.
Well, the next time we get together for lunch in San Francisco, I look forward to those.
I look forward to that too, Adam.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much to Marc Stoll, President and COO of Nextiva. One thing, if you take away nothing from this, but one thing, take away that Nextiva is not just UC. You've got to look deeper because they truly are different. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care.
Yes.